If you want to use call and response phrasing for better sounding guitar solos, well, in this video I'll show you exactly what to do. So stay tuned. Hi, James here, and welcome to lesson 4 in my guitar soloing school series here on YouTube. Now, so far we've looked at some pretty important ideas. We've looked at how to get your rhythm and your timing really solid. We've looked at how to use repetition and space. And these are all things which can make a big difference to your playing. So if you haven't seen the previous lessons in this series, do check them out because they can really help you. If you have been using what I've shown you in those lessons, well, I really hope that you're starting to hear a difference in the sound of your guitar soloing. Now, in today's lesson, we're going to look at another really important topic, and this is the idea of using call and response phrasing in your solos. This is a really powerful device for giving your solos structure, making them sound logical, and just making them sort of sound like they make sense to a listener. We're going to look at what call and response phrasing actually is, and I'm going to give you some powerful tips and practice exercises which you can use to start using it effectively in your solo work. This video is brought to you by my Noble Music Theory for Guitarists book. This is the quickest and easiest way for any player to nail the essential music theory that all guitar players need to know. Also check out my Blues Soloing for Guitar book series, featuring 10 authentic blues solos complete with analysis, breakdowns, covering all the techniques and knowledge you need to play great sounding blues. They also include backing tracks and video lessons. You can find links to all these books in the description below this video. Okay, so what do we mean when we talk about call and response phrasing? Well, another name for it is question and answer. And to put it very simply, it's the idea that when we're improvising or composing, we can play a phrase which sounds like a question and answer it with another phrase that sounds like the answer. So it gives our kind of playing or our music this kind of conversational type thing. It's a really powerful musical effect. So let's say we had a little blues lick like this. That might be our question. You can hear how the second phrase kind of sounds like a response or an answer to the first phrase. Let me play that again for you. You can hear that effect there again. Now, the best place to start with this really is just to put on a backing track and just to experiment with the general idea of playing a phrase, leaving a space, and then trying to play an answer to that phrase, okay? Now I'm just going to demonstrate that briefly for you over 12-bar blues in the key of G, and the idea isn't so much to overthink it now, you just want to experiment with a general idea. Later in this video I'm going to give you a few more specific things you can use to help get this effect. But let's just have a listen to some of it over 12-bar blues in G now. Hopefully you can hear the idea there. The first phrase is almost like a question, and the second phrase is like a response to that first phrase, or like an answer to that question. Now, as I just said a moment ago, the best place to start with this is just to have a bit of fun with it. Don't overthink it, don't try too hard. Just put on a blues backing track or any kind of style that you want, and just see if you can play a phrase, leave a space, and just try and respond to that phrase in some way. Now, to begin with, you're not going to nail it every time, and that's absolutely fine. The idea is just to experiment with it. Play around with the idea. You'll start to get a feel for how to do it after a while. And the great thing about this is if you play around with it enough, you'll start to find it will naturally begin to creep into your playing and give your solos a sort of more memorable, more melodic and more sense of structure. It's going to sound better to a listener. I'm going to demonstrate the idea for you one more time in a different style now. I've got a rock ballad set up here in the key of C sharp minor. So I'm going to play a few question and answer phrases over that just to give you a further idea of what this sounds like. And after that, I'm going to show you some specific techniques that you can use to start getting call and response happening in your playing. Okay, so now that you've played around with a general idea and you have a rough idea of what call and response phrasing sounds like, let's look at a couple of techniques. Let's go a little bit deeper into this, and I'll show you some specific things you can do to help you get good at creating this effect. And the first one I want to look at is this idea of playing your question 3 times and then answering it. And there's just something about repeating something 3 times. It seems to really set up a lot of tension and expectation that an answer is about to come. For example, you might have something like this. I might play again and again. And it can you kind of feel that tension? I do it again and I'm going to answer it, and you'll hopefully hear the idea there. That's that kind of a 3-in-1 effect that I'm talking about. There's just something about playing it 3 times. It sets up the expectation. It makes the answer really work. It kind of almost creates a call and response effect for you. So I'm trying to make that really obvious in my playing there, and hopefully you can hear how this idea of repeating your question several times builds this tension and makes it even more effective when you do deliver the answer. Another thing that can create call and response effect is to have your call going up and your response coming down. So in other words, you have like an ascending phrase for your call and a descending phrase for your response. And this can create this conversational thing really strongly, because you kind of have like 2 different voices in your solo. Now, a nice way to demonstrate this is just to play up a scale and then come down a scale a little bit, and you'll kind of hear the effect. So I'm going to start in, just got G minor pentatonic, just could use any scale, but I'm going to use G minor pentatonic. I'm going to start at this note here, and I'm going to go up the scale from my response, from my question, or my call rather, and I'm going to start on the same note and go down, and you're going to hear this effect. And then I'm going to demonstrate this over track for you. But so here's your call, response, call, response. You can hear just that sound of the ascending phrase and the descending phrase. The kind of the opposite feel of them creates this call and response effect. I'm going to do that in a slightly more creative way now over that 12-bar blues backing track, and just see if you can pick up on this effect of the ascending phrase mirroring the descending phrase and how this creates this question and answer feel. Another great way to create call and response is to play 2 phrases which are contrasting in some way, which are kind of opposites. We've seen this a little bit already with a phrase going up and a phrase going down, but we can explore this idea a little bit more. We could try like a really slow phrase with lots of long notes. We could contrast that with like a faster phrase. Now the idea I'm gonna play around with is playing a phrase which is kind of a higher, meaning like higher up on the neck with higher sounding notes, and responding to that or answering it with a phrase which is using lower notes, more sort of bassy notes down on the sort of lower end of the neck here. And just that kind of inbuilt contrast can really help you get this call and response effect happening. I'm going to play over my C# minor rock ballad track that I used earlier, And it's going to be really obvious when you hear this contrast. So this is definitely something to check out. Think about finding two phrases which are opposites. This can really work well. Can you hear the opposite types of phrases, the high phrase and the lower phrase? And this is a really cool way to get this call and response effect. Again, it's important to try and come up with a kind of a pretty strong question so that the response is heard. If you've got a really half-baked question phrase, you know, the response isn't really going to be heard as a response. So you need to be very clear here. Of course, everything else we looked at in this series of lessons, like keeping your timing solid, leaving space, maybe using some repetition, all this stuff still applies. And the thing about this series is that all the lessons want to stack on top of each other. You know, don't bin what you learned in the other lessons just as soon as you get up to call and response. You've got to stack all these ideas together. So find some backing tracks that you enjoy playing over and experiment with these general ideas. And again, just have fun with it. You know, don't overthink it. Just play around with these concepts, okay? Don't stress out if you're not getting amazing call and response phrases straight away. Practice it. Play around with it, just experiment with it, and you'll begin to notice it just starts to become a part of your play. And it might not happen overnight, but it will definitely happen. And this is a really cool device to get into your playing, so it's definitely worth spending a bit of time experimenting on learning how to use call and response. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time in the next lesson in this series, where we'll be looking at another important improvisation soloing approach. Remember to check out the links below this video to the other lessons in this series, as well as all my books and courses and all that good stuff. You'll find all that in the description below this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, so that you don't miss the forthcoming lessons in this series. And apart from that, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you spending a bit of time with me today, and I really hope that the ideas that I'm putting forward in these lessons are helping you. Most people never experiment with any of this stuff. So if you do and you get it to work, it's going to make a big difference to your playing. Put you ahead of the competition maybe. Not that it's a competition anyway, but you get the idea. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you again next time. So bye for now.